how royals got high in every time period.
Darling, before we begin, I need you to understand something. The people who wrote your history books left out the best parts. What was in the cup, what was in the pipe, and what, exactly, was in the ritual enema? Yes, I said what I said. And that is just level 1. By the time we reach level 5, we will have covered an emperor who wrote his own drug diary, a queen who shared cocaine chewing gum with the future Prime Minister of Britain, and a dynasty of rulers who had opium poppies carved into the most famous building in the world. History is not boring. They just taught you the boring version. I'm your Diva. And today, we are going through every era, every empire, every time period, and telling you exactly what the royals were on. Let's begin. Level 1. Ancient Egypt, where everything was sacred, everything was ritual. And, as recent chemistry has confirmed, everything was also a little bit psychedelic. Meet the Blue Lotus, also known as the Water Lily, also known as the Pharaoh's Friday Night. Egyptian priests and royalty drank this, mixed with alcohol, honey, and things I will not name in polite company, from ritual vases called Bes mugs. Recent chemical analysis of those mugs confirmed the cocktail, Blue Lotus, a psychoactive plant called Syrian rue, and, oh yes, human fluids, for fertility rituals. This is peer-reviewed archaeology. The goal was divine visions, contact with the gods, a higher state of consciousness. The Egyptians considered this medicine, ceremony, and access to the divine, all at once. What they got was probably closer to a very interesting Tuesday. But the confidence with which they approached it is, I think, something we could all learn from. Egypt was using psychedelic cocktails from ritual mugs? Impressive. But the Mayans looked at that and said, hold my balshe. Because in Mesoamerica, they took the same concept, added ceremonial enemas, and made it a state occasion. With priests, in front of everyone, at the coronation. Level 2, Mesoamerica, where royalty was not playing around at all. Mayan kings had balche, a fermented honey mead brewed with tree bark and left to ferment in a canoe, which sounds almost civilized. But they weren't stopping there. To reach higher states, Mayan elites also used ritual enemas containing alcohol and psychoactive plant compounds, administered by priests, in a ceremonial context, in front of the court. I am going to let that sentence exist in the world for a moment. Ritual, enemas, by priests, at the ceremony. This was not a fringe activity. This was the VIP experience. This was what you got for being royalty. The peasants, one assumes, had to make do with the regular drinks. Then, there were the Aztecs. Emperor Moctezuma II, commander of armies, lord of millions, ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the Americas, consumed sacred psilocybin mushrooms called Teonenacatl at his coronation ceremony. Because if you are going to be crowned ruler of an empire, you might as well be on mushrooms. The confidence alone, I respect it. Egypt had the psychedelic cocktails. Mesoamerica had the ceremonial mushrooms and the priests. Both of these civilizations at least had structure. What comes next had no priests, no ceremony, and no particular agenda. Just kings, a felt tent, and an enormous amount of cannabis smoke. And according to one ancient Greek historian who witnessed it personally, howling. Quite a lot of howling. Level 3. The Scythians, nomadic kings of the Eurasian steppe, warriors, horsemen, conquerors, and, as documented by Herodotus in the 5th century BC, absolute cannabis enthusiasts. Scythian royals, after burial ceremonies, would gather inside enclosed felt tents, heat stones until burning red, throw cannabis seeds directly onto them, and then simply sit in the tent, inhaling. Herodotus witnessed this and recorded specifically that they howled with pleasure. His word, howled, with pleasure. These were kings. These were men who fought battles on horseback across the steppe, conquered territory, commanded armies, and after a royal funeral, which, fair enough, everyone grieves differently, they sat in a hot tent full of cannabis smoke and howled. I do not endorse it. I do not judge it. I simply respect the commitment to the bit. The Scythians were howling in their tents. Impressive. But while they were doing that, the Chinese imperial court had developed a considerably more sophisticated arrangement, one where neighboring kingdoms sent opium as tribute, annually, by the kilogram to the emperor, as a gift, with a bow on it, and the emperor accepted it, and filed it under official court records, which is exactly the kind of receipts that make history interesting. Level 4. China, the Ming Dynasty, where opium arrived at the imperial court not as a scandal, not as a contraband item, but as tribute, as a gift from subject kingdoms. As the done thing, Ming emperors received opium through the royal tributary system. Neighboring kingdoms, including the Kingdom of Siam, sent gifts to the imperial court annually: silk, ivory, rhino horn, peacock feathers, and up to 100 kilograms of waxiang, the court's polite term for opium, 100 kilograms, annually. As a diplomatic courtesy, official court documents noted it was used medicinally, for pain, for vitality. Court texts also describe it as something that, and I am quoting from 15th century official government records, enhances the art of alchemists, sex, and court ladies. Their words, in an official document, filed, stamped, archived. When the Qing dynasty arrived, they tried to ban it. In 1729, then 1796, then 1814, then 1831. None of the bans worked because the British Empire across the ocean had decided that opium was the answer to a trade deficit from buying too much Chinese tea. China said no. Britain sent warships. The Opium Wars began. But that, darling, is a whole separate episode. China's emperors received opium as tribute and lost 2 wars trying to stop it. Messy, but nothing prepared me for what the Mughal Empire did with the same substance. Because the Mughals did not just use opium, they wrote about it in their own published memoirs with exact daily dosages while running an empire, and one of them fell down the stairs. Level 5. The Mughals, where it stops being a historical curiosity and becomes a dynasty-wide documented situation. And I mean documented. By the royals themselves, voluntarily. Let us go through the family, darling, because the pattern here is remarkable. Babur, founder of the Mughal dynasty, addicted to wine and majun, an opium paste. His son, Humayun, also an opium addict, who spent historically very little time actually governing. He fell down the stairs of his own library in 1556 and died from the head injury. It is recorded that at the time, he had consumed large amounts of opium. He fell down the stairs while ruling an empire. Level 5 is already delivering. Then came Akbar, who used opium in relative moderation. Historians have observed that his moderate substance use mirrored his generally moderate governing style. And then, his son, Emperor Jahangir, the 4th Mughal Emperor, who wrote his own memoir, the Tuzuk-i-Jahangiri. which he personally authored and published, and in which he documented his daily routine as follows: 8 measures of opium in the afternoon, 6 more in the evening, 6 cups of wine every single day for 15 years. He wrote this down in a book that he knew people would read. The man documented his own daily opium program in his published autobiography and did not consider this remarkable. He also noted in the same memoir that 2 of his brothers and an uncle had died from excessive alcohol. He was fully aware of the pattern. His response was to document his own struggle with addiction openly and replace some of the wine with more opium. He was self-medicating alcoholism with opiates in the 1600s, and he wrote it down. When British Ambassador Thomas Roe arrived at Jahangir's court in 1615, he quickly established that the most welcome diplomatic gift was alcohol. He wrote in his dispatches that he had never seen a man so enamored of drink as the king. Cases of red wine, he noted, would be more welcome than the richest jewel in London. Roe became Jahangir's drinking partner. International diplomacy in the early 1600s was largely just managing the emperor's daily intake together. And who was running the Mughal Empire while Jahangir attended to his daily program? His wife, Empress Nur Jahan. She issued imperial decrees, had coins struck in her own name, directed military strategy, controlled the imperial seal. No document was valid without her approval. Jahangir once wrote that he had sold his kingdom to his beloved queen for a cup of wine and a dish of soup, in his own published memoir about himself as a sitting emperor. The audacity of the self-awareness. Then, Shah Jahan, builder of the Taj Mahal, one of the most famous structures in human history, mixed opium with his wine daily and had poppy flowers carved into the Taj Mahal itself, the monument to his beloved wife, decorated with opium poppies, the most visited building in the world, has opium flowers on it. I need to pause here because I have a thought. We have just covered Egypt, Mesoamerica, the Eurasian steppe, China, and an entire Mughal dynasty. And in every single case, the royal class found a way to integrate psychoactive substances into their governance structure. Not secretly, not as scandal, as ceremony, as tribute, as something you wrote in your published memoir and had your court painters illustrate. And then, centuries later, the descendants of these exact lineages decided this was shameful, criminal, a moral failure, while continuing to do it privately with royal warrants from village pharmacies in Scotland. Which brings us to the Victorians, who gave everything a polite name, a medical label, and a royal warrant, and then proceeded to consume more substances per capita than anyone on this list, including the Queen, who had opinions about everything and apparently no opinion at all about cocaine chewing gum. The Victorians, where everything gets a label, a tincture, a medical endorsement, a royal warrant, and a very polite name. Let us go through Queen Victoria's personal pharmaceutical program, because it deserves its own moment. Vin Mariani, a Bordeaux wine infused with cocaine, endorsed by Queen Victoria, also endorsed by Pope Leo XIII, Thomas Edison, and multiple heads of state. The manufacturer received a personal letter of appreciation from the Vatican. The Pope carried a personal hip flask of it. For energy, in public, at the Vatican, cocaine wine, Vatican approved, gold medal at international gay exhibitions. This is not satire. This is documented product marketing from the 1880s. Victoria's personal physician Sir John Russell Reynolds prescribed her cannabis for menstrual pain. His paper in The Lancet, one of the most respected medical journals in the world, described cannabis as, quote, one of the most valuable medicines we possess. Victoria also used chloroform during childbirth, which she personally described as delightful beyond measure. When the Queen of England called something delightful beyond measure, the entire British medical establishment took note. Chloroform in obstetric care became standard practice across the empire, largely because she said it was nice. This is how medical normalization worked in the 19th century. To summarize Victoria's personal medicine cabinet: laudanum daily, cocaine chewing gum enthusiastically shared with children, cannabis prescribed and documented in a peer-reviewed journal, cocaine, wine endorsed, cocaine, lozenges delivered to Scotland, chloroform described as delightful. By any modern standard, this is a significant polysubstance situation. In the 19th century, it was called the Royal Medicine Cabinet, and she was running an empire the entire time. Whether that speaks to her constitution or the mildness of the substances I will leave as an open question.